This episode of the podcast is sponsored by my book, We Stand on the Shoulders of Titans, Amnesia. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode. We're today going to be looking at the current state of our, government, politics, and the overall state of our society in the modern day 2025. Biggest thing is, in the past 10 years, the past decade, we've seen England do a Brexit, leave the European Union, and we've seen the current state of the European Union and the promises that were made during the period when Brexit was first debated. So, bringing my question to Mike, how has that evolved thus far?
Not for the better, I can tell you that. It's gone to absolute shite, the country. We're at the point where you can't even put your own flag up without the police coming around. You know, I think that says something. So, right, honestly, I don't know if it could be a case of we're just competing with the EU to see who can be the most authoritarian quickly, or it's just Brussels working through our governments to just betray the people. Either way, it's not good.
So, like the way I describe it in chapter 2 of my book, what I call the Byzantium paradox, is the idea that politicians are more, obsessed with their own career over actually doing something that matters for the state of current politics. And, going through my country, your country, and with Dave, Scotland, they also had an independence vote with similar kind of ideas because you wanted to stay part of the European Union, right, Dave?
Yeah, we wanted to stay part of the Union, but most of the country kind of voted to come out of England and stay as part of the Union, which was quite strange to
What
me.
did you vote for?
I voted to leave
The England or the UK or
the
EU?
EU, yeah.
Oh.
For England, I would have thought we would have been better all together, so I voted to stay.
Yeah, so the problem that we're experiencing in our current society and the current state of the current society is, mostly obviously careerism, but it's people debating for problems that they created 10 years ago and not actually creating a solution to the current state of our affairs, right?
Or
So,
worse, they are creating the problems that they can provide the solutions to.
yeah, create the problem, solve the solution, right? That type of mentality. And the way I describe it is what you're debating angels, you're debating things that are fictional, you're debating things that don't actually matter for the greater good. In a lot of consensus, what we see in, like, for example, my government, is that they're very obsessed with debating things about transgenderism and things that are not important for the greater good. Like LGBT, I just don't really care. I just don't.
You said about angels. What do you mean there?
In the Byzantium paradox, so I'm specifically mentioning Byzantine here, which is then more modern day Turkey is, modern day Istanbul, so in Constantinople. They had some of the best walls ever constructed, right? Like the Theodosian walls. These were, for its time, the strongest walls on planet Earth. So they were a defense that was so powerful that they inside didn't really care about what's happening outside. Obviously, there were multiple factors in the collapse of the Byzantine Empire. But generally speaking, when it comes to what was happening inside with the elite, the people in charge, they were more obsessed with debating at the time the orthodoxy. So that means the Christian church, specifically the Orthodox
dogma?
Church. Yeah. And they just kept debating those type of things instead of actually fixing what was going on. Same with emperors that came and gone. Like obviously Justinian was one of the ones that tried to still steer the ship in the right direction. But it's just like this whole concept of like keep on building towards a problem that just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you have like the collapse over centuries, right? So in that sense, in my government, your government, what is the biggest problem that we are facing right now that is not being spoken about in specifically political debate?
Is the collapsing of the country?
Yeah, I mean they're not.
A lot on.
I mean, in the debate, they keep arguing about over hate speech.
Is
So
that
you
where the
keep
idea
getting
of top police came into?
what?
Is that where the idea from the top police came into as well?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they do what the politicians tell them to. So it's where you get the likes of like non-crime hate incidents, and you get and like I said before, you get people getting arrested for putting up England flags. You know,
What is
your
this
own country flag.
Metropolis? Sorry, I'm confused here. What's this Metropolis?
What?
What?
What was it you said there? Metropolis, or is it Metropolis, or?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So,
Sorry for you, Dominic. What was it you said there at the start
part of what?
in regards to the country collapsing or hate speech?
Oh, I just said about the top police. I was asking, like, is that how we developed towards the top police in England?
Oh, right. So what is a Metropolis? Sorry.
Well,
No, thought police. He said.
Oh, thought police. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, it's just it's just the accents. It's like
It's so
what
quick. Yeah, sorry.
one thick accent meets another. That's all it
I'm
is.
sorry, right. Okay, that's thanks for clarifying that. Sorry.
yeah,
My
Yeah,
bad.
don't worry, Dominic. He's Scottish.
yeah. Like the top police. Like one of the good examples that I've observed was when there was someone outside of an abortion clinic just minding her own business, but like probably praying for what's going on, right? And then she
So
got
she was
arrested.
kneeling down praying, then she got arrested. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is like, how do you think about that, right? Because if you think about freedom of speech, which is a big thing,
The way I look at it is, as long as she's not actively physically stopping people from going into the thing if they want, she's not doing any harm. I mean, if she wants to pray for them, she's doing what she thinks is best for these people, which I can. I mean, I might. I mean, my stance on abortion has changed over time. So I used to be very pro-choice. Now I'm moving a bit more to no, because people are taking advantage of it now. They're basically using it as contraceptive. So I'm like, yeah, we need to be a bit more restrictive on it now. That said, I recognize the use of it, so people still should be able to use it within reason. So going back to the woman, if she's not like chaining the doors up or like waving a gun around and trying to stop people from going in, then she should be allowed to sit there and pray. I mean, I might not agree with the praying bit, but it's her thing, and she's trying to make a statement. She's doing what she thinks will help other people.
Yeah.
And she should be allowed to do that, whether you agree with it or not.
Right, in that sense, the people who go in to the abortion clinic, it is their body. Essentially, if the baby, or if it's not even a baby at that point, if it's conceived through, like, if the woman goes through a traumatic experience, is it the woman's right to be able to abort the fetus because she doesn't want to have that
I
child?
used to be I used to be in that. I was like, her body, her choice. But the way I look at it now is it is a potential other life you're killing, because you have laws about this where it's like, if a pregnant woman's killed, it's a double homicide, but it's not been born. But if you abort the baby, it's not a homicide. So there's like inconsistencies within the law. But I found it's a lot of just like irresponsible people. I was gonna say irresponsible women, but there are plenty of irresponsible guys doing it as well, who
Yeah.
don't just do the responsible things, like practice safe sex, get contraception, condoms, morning after pill, that kind of stuff, and then they go and get an abortion. It's like, you potentially, it's another potential life there. I'm against it being used as a contraception. Basically, it should be used. I mean, the way I look at it is my current stance on it, and you could disagree with. You've got the usual one. If it's rape, or it's like actual potential harm to the mother giving birth, then it's more acceptable there. And maybe, given advances in technology, you could maybe, if you wait until the baby's viable, you can transfer it from the mother to a artificial womb, maybe. So
Yeah.
you're not killing the baby, but the mother's not going through the traumatic experience
Yeah.
as well. So you've
Yeah.
got
brain is a
that.
different
But
problem, though.
well, we'll go to that in a sec. But the other part is, as well, is that it can't be subsidized. If you are going to be responsible and getting tons, and going to be getting tons of abortions, because you've literally have some people bragging about abortion scars, about how many abortions they've had, and I've heard some celebrities say like they wish they've had an abortion, like it's a trendy thing. So it's like, yeah, you're gonna have to, if that's where we're going with it, you're gonna have to start paying for it yourself. No subsidies. It's like, make it very like a very expensive contraceptive option. That will probably make people think twice about just instead of being very blasé about it.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I can see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, so you're not basically, you're still providing access to it, but you're not you're not cutting off access, but you're not making it so people can just abuse the system as well.
Yeah,
But what was this other problem you said, Dominic?
Well, like when you put it into an artificial womb, right? The issue is that children, that like babies specifically, if they don't have contact with their mother, it leads to problems later on in life, specifically attachment problems and trust issues. This has been proven scientifically.
Yeah, oh yeah, I know
Where-
about that. Yeah.
So that is like a big deal. Like if you change it into like this is also for me, like when I look at this whole idea of artificial human creation, right? At that stage, is like you're removing the humanity from the human, which is a very Nietzschean thing where you just become like an Ubermensch, right? Like, but then the other side, like what you said, is also like something I've heard, like also from comedians, right? Like if you have the right to abort it, then the man should have the right to abandon it, meaning no child support.
Yeah, it's like yeah, I've heard that one as well. I mean, it's true though, but you've got I mean, I get the problems. I mean, that's very good point. You can account for those. I mean, you got like foster homes as well. I mean, you could have like it's like the. I mean, for example, let's say the mother's just at risk because of the birth. She's not going to want to get rid of the baby, so she could still be around. If it's one with rape, I mean, you could put them up for immediate adoption.
yeah. But
Potentially,
then
I mean,
she's going for a
maybe.
traumatic
I mean,
experience twice,
there's
which,
ways you can account for it and get around that. I mean, I'm not advocating for like, oh, we should just start making baby factories now. Like we're just getting artificial wombs, just churning out kids, to solve the
Imagine.
population crisis
Yeah.
or something. But yeah, but it's like as long as it's not done in a crazy manner, like
Yeah.
massively overblown numbers, you can account for that with other systems.
Yeah, we're living in a society, but now where people get upset at the slightest thing. I mean, I heard of an incident there the other day where, a person had called up a company about there being condoms, not so condoms, sorry, about there being tampons in the male's toilets. Yeah, now I don't understand what the problem is. There could be some legitimate reasons for that to happen. E.g., maybe a dad needs to get some tampons for his daughter because she's too embarrassed to go and get some, or there's an incident or something like that. There is legitimate reasons for them to be there.
There's
However,
that.
people were getting upset about this. So this person was calling because they got upset about that, which I don't get.
There's that. I mean, okay, you could say, okay, your ones could be a legitimate reason. I think that any self-respecting dad would just barge into the women's toilet, grab something, probably pull the tampon machine out the wall and just say, look, here's some fucking tampons, sort it out.
But then there's the argument.
But the problem is the problem is it's why it's been put there. It's not been put because of a potential actual good reason, like you said. It's to facilitate people who are abusing everyone's goodwill. Like people who are pretending that they're trans.
Right.
That kind of thing. Because that's what usually happens with these. They're done for the most cynical reasons possible, and it's usually done as a naked power play.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, we can do this. Look at what we can do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not done to this kind of thing's not done to help people. It's done to help abusers, or at least implicitly done to help abusers get away with what they're doing. Saying, yeah, it's okay for you to do this here. We're not going to stop you.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Well, the argument was brought up that condoms has existed in females' toilets for years and years and years, and that's again a legitimate reason because many women might want to get contraceptive before they go and have sex
Yeah, no,
with another male.
that's apples and oranges, though. It's a false equivalency because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, because women do use condoms. Women probably buy more condoms than men. I'd argue, but you're not going to get many men going to get tampons.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. If you look at it from that point of view, then yeah.
It brings us to like probably the core philosophy that I personally have. Because when I say we're debating angels, like this is what the Byzantium during the time was doing, right? They're debating angels. But then what are our angels in this sense? Well, that's kind of like what we're talking about now. We're talking about abortion. We're talking about, for example, our tech infrastructure. It's sort of a big topic as well.
The causes, isn't it?
Yeah, like these are all like symptoms in a greater disease of society. Like for my core argument, it's not really in the book, but it's like if I were to have cancer, I would go to the hospital and get the chemotherapy, right? Right now, I would say our civilizations have cancer. And this cancer is just a buildup of all kinds of symptoms that lead to a self-destructive disease, which is what cancer is, right? It's an immune system attacking itself. And
Yeah.
our angels are basically the ESG scores, for example. These are completely unnecessary. They're equity over meritocracy, which makes absolutely no sense. They are like, well,
Would you say it's devils posing as angels?
I mean, it's a good way to talk about it, right? Like if you look at the Book of Judges, for example, there's a lot of warnings about people doing what they thought was right, what was right in their own eyes. And this is when the Israelis, for like 12 generations, kept, not just other than, but 12 times, kept doing the same kind of mistake, the same cycle of repeating what they thought was right. And then you keep having that issue, and you see the same now in our society where people are like, but this is right, but this is right, but this is right. So,
Road to hell.
Can we go back a wee bit? Can we explain what ESG is?
The ESG
Environmental,
score.
social, and governance score. It's done. It's promoted by specifically like what you call them, investment firms like BlackRock.
Yep.
Not just them, but they're among some of the main perpetrators of it. They provide grants and funding for people who follow their environmental, social, and governance objectives. So basically, it's a way to force in woke stuff into a company from the top down. I mean, if you look up stuff like Bridge as well, that is another way of companies, activists trying to insert this kind of stuff into companies. One's through money, the other's through social pressure, but it's always done in a top-down fashion. So the whole point is you're supposed to have quotas of so many minorities in the corporation, in the boardrooms. You need to provide all of the you need to provide all of the positions specifically for all the basically non-white people. So it's very racist. It's like I was saying before, devils posing as angels because they say they're doing it for good stuff, but then it's not. It's basically it's race. They say they're fighting racism, but it's racism under any other name or bigotry of various stripes. So they try and force that, and it's like so the likes of BlackRock will give funding, say, yeah, as long as you do these goals, as long as you follow these objectives that we've laid down for our ESG agenda, you can get funding from us, and a lot of companies do it because they want the funding. It was especially bad during COVID. You had a lot of companies just basically grovel at the teat of these investment firms because they were handing out billions just for simply saying, oh yeah, we want you to like go carbon net zero or something like that. Whether it's feasible or not. Because the money they would get would offset any losses they do from going net zero. The good news is though, I think that money's starting to dry up a bit now though, because it's proven so unpopular in general. they can't keep on subsidizing all of this stuff. So it's just waiting until the money completely dries up, and then these companies will have to either stop what they're doing and go back to a more reasonable business model, a more meritocratic business model, or they'll go under.
Yeah, like one of the biggest problems in our current society is, I would say, young and specifically single men, right? They are just going through the streets, not really having a purpose in life. They're dropping out of school. And if you look at the ESG of universities, for example, like we had a conversation about institutional collapse in episode 2, where one of the key components is the fact that men are dropping out massively when it comes to higher education. And at the same time, if you actually look at what these higher institutions are doing, they're subsidizing everything for women and minorities. So there's scholarships and all kinds of benefits if you are female or like a different color, right? So there is an extreme amount of heavy discrimination and sexism going against specifically men in their own country. A good example for that is the University of Eindhoven, that is in my country, where in 2019 they were going to the point where they put up like listings for professorships and completely banned all men from applying. So only women were allowed to apply so they could glorify some kind of statistic in order to make this happen. This was so sexist that they were dragged to the Court of Human Rights in my country. And they lost that case quite miserably. And all they got was a slap on the wrist to just basically say, don't do this. And they loaded it to 6 months instead of like indefinitely.
They thought it was a slap on the wrist because the people in charge were like, okay, we're going to have to make a show of making you stop, but just like, don't be so obvious about it next time.
Yeah. And that is
it's like, I remember the BBC got into a lot of trouble a year or two ago because they were offered job listings that said like minorities only. So basically the vast majority of the country couldn't apply for the job.
To be fair, when's the BBC not getting into trouble, but
Yeah, but I mean, this is like with this specific in this specific case, I mean, the BBC is a lot of crap anyway.
But that is what is like currently being debated in government, in politicians, and we are seeing our walls crumble. Our walls are not necessarily like the borders that we have, but more our culture itself is
the metaphorical walls. Yeah,
exactly, like these metaphorical walls. And like we can talk about like the actual influence we see, for example, a lot of outsiders paying into our country to do activism things or to like enable certain types of behavior. Like ESG comes from investment firms, but at the other side of the spectrum, we also like China is investing in order to weaken the West. The Middle East is investing to weaken the West. Russia is investing to weaken the West. Like a lot of money flows through the European Union and United Kingdom just to weaken us and to sell an idea that is completely toxic for our own society. One of the key things in specifically like where I'm from is in mosques. Like I didn't really have a problem with Islam to a degree, but the biggest problem that we see is, for example, in Turkish mosques, there's a lot of Turkish companies, like oligarchies in Turkey, that are spending a lot of money investing into these mosques. And then they're also sending imams specifically from Turkey with certain agenda in order to preach the very heavy Turkish mindset within these mosques. So what we see then is that these Turkish people at least in my city, but also in the country, especially during the European Cup, you saw it, is that they're extremely nationalistic and extremely heavily supporting Erdogan. And like the regime, aside the fact that they don't even live there, they're just being like preached an idea that is false from reality. But they are so rooted into that consensus that they don't really accept what's going on. Exactly. And we're allowing that because this investment is flowing into our country. The same with ESG. It's money come from outside flowing into our country, corrupting our nation. And then we have politicians that like money, that are just doing debates instead of actual action.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to the politicians, like the ones who are actively betraying the countries that they're supposed to be looking after, they think they're not going to be affected by it. They think they're going to be the ruling class when it all comes over, and they don't realize that once a country falls, they're going to be put up against the wall by the actual conquerors. Like let's say China successfully makes Britain collapse. with all of the social engineering. Well, the people under China then will put these politicians up against the wall and said, well, no, you are clearly unreliable because you were doing what we wanted you to by helping the country collapse. So we don't want you here now. It's like whenever a revolution's been, whenever a revolution's finished, the first people to go are the agitators.
Yep,
The
it's always like
revolutionaries.
that. It's also these people, for example, in the Nazi regime, there were a lot of black people and like gay people that voted for the Nazis. That's like you're basically protesting for the KFC to stay open as a chicken. It's one of the dumbest things that you can do because you're basically protesting in order for you to go into the factory.
It's like you've got a lot of LGBT people who are going like, yeah, we're all for Palestine or something like that. It's like you do realize if they were in control, like at many of these Middle Eastern countries, they would literally throw you off a roof. So why is like they have like the pride flag and the Palestinian flag next to each other on their Twitter bios. It's like these two do not mix.
But it does bring up an interesting concept because in the Middle East, specifically in Saudi Arabia's capital, for example, there is a pretty big rise in LGBT as well. And then the surrounding villages are reacting by saying, like, Ibn Khaldun warned about these things, and they're asking for religious police to come back. So there's also corruption from the West going into the Middle East, like other nations. Like I would say everyone is trying to corrupt each other with like the type of nonsense that we're trying to push down everyone's throat. How is it looking in Scotland, Dave?
I mean, the same as what it's looking in England. We tend to follow a lot of, the UK laws were not completely devolved from like what the South do. We have our somewhat of our own laws and stuff like that, but we're not completely devolved. But equality is a big thing here, in terms of making sure everybody's treated equally. But it's leading to a lot of wokeism.
Well, the thing is, it's not equality; it's equity.
Yes, equity of outcome, right?
Yeah, because if you perform an equity, then it's not equality. I mean, there's no such thing as true equality. But by trying to force that, you're being just as unequal. It doesn't work out in a sense. It's like, okay, you've got people who can't get a job. Let's say end of just the civil rights era is just come through. All the Civil Rights Act in America or over here or somewhere. Okay, you've got a lot of black people who don't have jobs, don't have skills. Okay, it makes sense to give them a bit of a leg up to help them become productive members of society, like join society at large. But that means by doing that, you are tipping the scales in favor of a certain group, whether it's done with good intentions or bad. So you are depriving other people of a chance to get in that themselves. And like I said, it's like it might make sense for a little bit at once all the civil rights acts came in, but they've been kept in arbitrarily at this point, and it's gone beyond its original goal now. It's now just do it. I think it's going on its own inertia at some point. A lot of the civil rights, like specific like civil rights things, should have been redone over time. It's like, okay, now everyone's on a more somewhat level playing field, or at least equality of opportunity. We don't need to force any of these outcomes anymore. We don't need equity, but people keep it coming.
Yeah, Trump got rid of the Diversity and Equality Act in the States obviously for workers. And do you think that relates, or do you think that was a good thing for him to do to then,
I mean,
stop this diversifying of workforce?
It was an executive order, wasn't it? So,
yeah.
It's a step in the right direction. But it needs to be codified into law, because basically another president can come in and just say, well, here's my executive order, which completely overrides your executive order.
Well, I mean, it was Obama who brought in that act, I'm sure, to create diversity.
Yeah, so if I think, I mean, overall it's a good thing as long as it stops all of this kind of bullshit from happening. If it It needs to be put into law though, because otherwise it's just going to last as long as Trump's in power. I know some people are afraid he's going to do a third term. He's not going to do a third term. So it's
I
only
don't
going to
think
last.
his is out there to do a third term, to be honest with you.
But
But
no, even if he wouldn't, I think it's like he memes on it because he knows it pisses off the right people. Um, the ones who got like severe TDS and think he's like the second coming of Hitler and Saddam Hussein at the same time. So it pisses off those people, and he can make a lot of money by selling merch from it because we've already seen merch with 2028 on there. But yeah, I think he knows that if he seriously tried to make a run for it or tried to make to change any legislation to say that a president could run through a third term, he would lose everybody except for his most diehard base. Like the ones who think Trump could do no wrong. I mean, besides them, he would lose everyone. That's going to be like 90% of his base. Yeah, he'd lose all the support. So he's not stupid enough to even try that. I mean, that's if he's even considering it in the first place.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
But yeah,
kind of like
but
what's
that's
going on over America, right? Like it's also like how many prime ministers have there been now in the past 10 years when it comes to England?
so we've
Wow. We had one that lasted what,
six.
3 weeks? Was that
That was
that
Liz
Liz
Truss.
Truss?
To be fair to Liz Truss, she was ousted by a little coup. So she never really got a chance. Basically, the the usual, like all the vested interests wanted Rishi Sunak in. But he lost to Liz Truss. She got in. So I can't remember exactly what it is, but the Bank of England did some funny business, which made a big scandal for Liz Truss. It ended up with her having to resign in disgrace. She's been out and talked about it on certain podcasts if you want to try and catch it somewhere. But yeah, she was forced to resign in disgrace. And then Rishi Sunak ran unopposed. So technically he got in legitimately, but it's like no, there was a lot of manipulation going on around there. So yeah,
Is it the same financial institutions like BlackRock that did that?
I don't know if they had a hand. I mean, it was. I don't know specifically which vested interest in it. It could be the likes of BlackRock or other, NGOs and other conglomerates which have financial interests in the country. They have the money to throw around and the clout. It could be them. I don't know who specifically did it, but the end result was of what the Bank of England did. And then it eventually got Rishi Sunak, the ones that these people wanted in power, to get into power.
Right, okay. So we're seeing massive corruption then, or just across the board, really?
I mean, it is all corruption because because these people know it's not a popular thing, so they're trying to go around. They're trying to go around the people by getting language change so laws can change. It's a very long game. I mean, you've got companies that will forego short term profits because they can win the long term culture war if they can get people to believe or grow up with only knowing the like the ESG doctrine or the woke doctrine, whatever you want to call it, whatever, put in X agenda here. So these, it's like if you play in Civ, your trade capacity falls down, but your culture score goes up, so you can start taking over cities with just overwhelming culture, and they're trying to do that by forcing this stuff in sideways. If you get me?
Yeah. What's missing for me, but is what is the overall goal of that? I mean, yeah, I get the elite can then grow, but if there's no society to grow from because they've destroyed it, then what's ultimately going to be left for them?
Now, I think it'll end up destroying society, but I think these people genuinely believe they can change it. They believe they can change it. So the way you get like a lot of like especially Disney stuff. They're saying like, oh, it's for these shows are for the modern audience, or they're trying to capture the modern audience. There's no such thing. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to create one. If they have kids who grow up only watching this kind of stuff, that will be what the modern audience is then, because that's what they expect. Which is why they're trying to edit and change older works now. You know, you get like people constantly attacking Tolkien, saying like, "Well, Tolkien, like orcs are racist." You know, orcs are black. They're trying to denigrate the likes of Tolkien, or the classic literature,
What's
or you know,
Tolkien?
all
Sorry,
the
just
film.
to go back a bit.
Lord of the Rings.
The
Oh,
Order
yeah.
of the Lord of the
Yeah,
Rings. Like there's a university in Nottingham that has said that you need to acknowledge that Lord of the Rings is racist, otherwise you won't get your degree or something like that.
yeah. No,
Really?
it was in the Telegraph the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a professor, an African professor, because obviously it always comes from, you know, it always comes from these types of people who, you know, like, you know, who from the Afrocentrism movement, um, who think that, you know, like Africa's the middle of, you know, the center of the world.
I think like they don't live
And
there.
oh yeah, yeah, they don't live there, but they like, you know, like we was Kangs and shit, you know, that kind of thing. So they push all this kind of stuff because it's very easy, to say, and they can always find a couple of Tolkien scholars who will, you know, just bend for the right price and start saying, oh yeah, well, this and that says, you know, this and that is actually an allegory for like orcs are allegory for black people, despite the fact that Tolkien has been on record in, you know, in interviews and in his works themselves, has said he despises allegory. He's making he was basically just making a black and white world, you know, like good, you know, good versus evil, and the orcs are just evil, you know,
Well, it's not only
because
that,
they were
right?
created
Because
that way. But the whole point is, these people are trying to say it because they want to corrupt the work, so people don't know it for what it is, and they end up with like a modern day slop like the Rings of Power, which is a load of shite. But that kind of thing will create the modern audience if it's allowed to overtake actual, you know, the actual original works.
Right.
but the
Okay.
thing with Lord of the Rings, right? It is based off of Plato's ring. Like it has a proper like ancient history behind it. Because Plato argued that if you were to have a ring, what would you do with it? Like, would you corrupt yourself to power? And like this whole story that we see from Lord of the Rings has its foundation in Plato's work in the Republic. So,
I think there's more to it than just that. But
yeah, there's more to it, but the core consensus of the idea of the ring and destroying the ring comes from there. Obviously, the supernatural world comes from experience during the wars. That's kind of like speaks for itself, right? So, like, if you were to really think about it, the orcs, for that matter, were not necessarily a certain race. It's just what you see in war. It's just like the other side. Like, doesn't matter what the other side is. It's
it
that
was
that is the person you're shooting.
yeah, it was that, and industrialization as
That
well.
too. Yeah. So that
Because I
whole
mean, it's why, like, because Tolkien loved the Shires, and that's why, you know, the story starts in the Shire, you know, an idyllic place.
yeah. So it's just that this whole consensus, like in universities and in politics and like everything that we're doing, is just like everything is trying to be dumped down, and you are trying to create duck speak. You're trying to create doublethink, like as if Orwell has been all over the place as an instruction manual for all of our governments, where we're
Mm.
creating a society. And this is always the biggest test with no birth rates. If you have no birth rates, that means your ideology is dead in 3 generations. The whole reason we keep having this massive influx of immigration and refugees is because we're not having enough children. So the elite is expecting us to have children when they're creating a society where nobody wants to have children. So the Ouroboros is feasting on our young. They can't feast on our young anymore, so they import people whose young they can feast on. So it's also a brainwashing project for, because we're blaming right now like Africans and like all those type of things, right? Like we're blaming Muslims as well more often than not. But the reality is that we're forcing them into a very desperate position. Like they are having to deal, because racism is real. It's just reality. But they're also not integrating due to nobody is actually policing them into actually integrating, right? They're creating a society within a society. And then you have politicians who live far away from all of these problems, speaking like they know what's going on, as if they understand what the actual problem is, and then pretending that they're going to find a solution for it. And that is what the Byzantine paradox is. Like you're debating all of these problems without actually creating a synthesis that allows for the, well, continuation of your own society. Because right now, where we're heading is a civil war, right? That's just to put it straightforward. We're heading towards civil war.
I agree with part of that, but I don't think it's like they're not being forced to. because a lot of them are here to just take advantage because they will,
Yeah, that too. But then
yeah.
we're allowing that, right? Like that's the problem.
Oh yeah, no, that's the thing. We are allowing it, but we're not forcing them to. We're giving them because a lot of them that come over, like especially the ones on the boats, they're all, well, the vast majority of them are adventurers. I mean, that's why the press and NGOs flock like flies around shit when it comes to when they actually find a woman and children, because there's so because there's so few of them. When like 99% of them are fighting age men, like between 18 and 40. And they're just there to. A lot of them are just there because one, they know they can get away with it. I mean, you see a bunch of them now, like doing TikTok videos showing how them throwing passports over the side of the boat and getting rid of all the documentation because they know they can get away with it. So you've got something like that, and a lot of these people who are here know that we are being a soft touch. I think that gold mine is going to dry up though, so you'll find the ones who do want to integrate will eventually start coming by through the normal means again, regular immigration. And I mean, at least in our country, I hope we end up getting probably like patrol boats in the channel. And if anyone tries to come, we just point the guns at them and say, nope, go back, because we can't. It's because we can't support it either. I mean, again with all of the social issues as well, not just the monetary. It costs us billions every year, but there's also the social issues. Like I say, well, social cohesion's going down, but we're going to end up in a civil war because of this. The way I've always looked at it is that immigration is a medicine for a country. You need it in a small dose because you might need to shore up some part of the, like you need a couple of like high tech, like high skilled workers coming in. So you might allow some to come from another country just to fill up a couple of space, like electricians and the like, for example. But if you do too many, well, you're overdosing, and if you're overdosed, well, your body shuts down, doesn't it? So that's what's happening to the country. We're overdosing on this medicine of immigration, and it's literally killing the country.
We do have to talk about the fact that like it's specifically like entitled people that are raised in like a luxurious household, on like an upper middle high class household. In 2015, 2016, you had the New Year's Eve sexual assaults in Germany. I don't know if you've ever heard of those.
Yeah, no, I've heard of that. Yeah,
I never heard of this.
Oh, here's one. Did you hear about the this was I think it was in Germany or Austria maybe. This was recent though. A woman, like a mayor somewhere.
Got raped by the people she adopted. Yeah, I've heard about that as well.
Oh, it was kidnapped and stabbed by and then she was like, "Well, it was all my fault." It was like
how can that be your fault? What? I don't get that.
It's suicidal empathy. Because she genuinely believes in that message. It's like that episode of Red Dwarf, the highs and the lows. It's like, oh, you appear to have stabbed me with your knife. Here, let me give you a clean one. So we get stabbed again.
The biggest thing is like it is mostly white women that come from affluential backgrounds, right? And in 2015 to 2016, Dave, there was like on 31st of December, obviously in 2015, there was a sexual assault by around over 2,000 perpetrators, right? There were 22 rapes in Cologne. There were 2 rapes in Hamburg. There were 650 assaults, so sexual assaults in Cologne, 400 in Hamburg, 103 in Dusseldorf, like 60 in Frankfurt am Main, 17 in Stuttgart. And all of the people who did this were of immigrant backgrounds, and all the people that got exalted were all of Germanic white background. And then you have these white people, these white women specifically, who live far away from all these problems. They hear it in the news and they forget about it in a week because they're so dopamine addicted to watching on Instagram and TikTok all day that they forget about it in a week. And now we are 9 years further, and you see these problems like what you just said about the mayor. Like it's the people she adopted. Like she adopted 2 kids, and it was the adopted daughter, I believe, that stabbed her. But this is happening continuously over and over, especially in Western Germany, where a lot of these cases are happening. Like Frankfurt itself is a zombie city. It's a drug-addicted, sexual-obsessed city. It's a completely fallen city, a zombie city, is what I call it. And this is just the development of years of looking away. Like your entire city has fallen during the European Cup when There's a lot of BBC and the Telegraph that did news articles on this. When you went to Frankfurt, like as England and the Netherlands as well, when you actually went there for the match, there was a lot of articles just in disbelief of the state of the city, of how bad the city is. And that is what politicians are just brushing aside. Like these assaults of 9 years ago, probably the most extreme, because you're dealing with over 2,000 perpetrators. And you're just, after like a few years, you're allowing all of these people from Afghanistan to come back in just because of suicidal tendencies.
No, go on and finish what you're
Because,
saying.
like, if you're so blindsided with debating fictional things, is what I say, like you're debating angels. That's what they were doing in Constantinople during those times, 600 years ago. Like, you're so obsessed with debating those angels that you're not actually caring what's outside of the walls. And at that time, you had the Ottomans with.
Yeah, no, you're so obsessed with theology, you're ignoring reality.
Exactly. And that's what's happening in our society as well. They're so obsessed with theology that they're forgetting the reality.
I mean, there was another
Right.
thing as well, like we were saying before about, the career politicians. A lot of them, like, they like this kind of stuff because it gives them the talking points to say, oh, well, we're going to do something about this. We're going to do something about this. But they only do it like during the election season.
They forget about it right away.
No, yeah, and then they ignore it, which is why I got behind the Restore Britain movement, because there's some motions in there to get the elections changed. It's like, well, any election mandates have got to be legally binding. So if like a councillor gets elected and they don't follow their election promises, or they've got no good reason to say why they couldn't complete their election promises, then they could potentially face penalties. Whether it's actually jail time or massive fines or something like that. And the same goes with the larger political parties. They should be legally bound by by what they've promised to do, and if they don't do it. I think people would let it slide. It was like, okay, we've got 90% of what we wanted, but you couldn't do this one thing. Okay, well, we've done most of it. But it's like you get a lot of the parties go like, oh, we promised all this, and you're lucky if you get 1% of what they've promised. So for stuff like that, people would be like, you have to be legally bound to do all of this stuff. You need to be punished for not doing it because you've sold us a false bill of goods.
Is there any country that does that at the moment?
Well, it's
not
more
that I'm aware of.
It's more like if you look at certain societal structures, especially in China, because in book 3 I'm working on like a theoretical system that should kind of like on paper hold itself in check. And I'm going to ignore most of the things, but I'm going to specifically talk about the Chinese exam system. So in China, the
what system, sorry?
Exams. So exam system.
Oh, exam. Okay.
So in China, for you to become a politician, it's an extreme meritocracy. So that means that you are given a test with like a passing rate of 0.3%, where they're going. There's also in the past that they had the Confucius system, where you need to justify that you know everything in the Confucius test of the Lee Wrights and everything. And the anecdotes.
I believe you've mentioned this before, yeah.
Yeah, I might have.
In private, yeah.
In private, yeah. Like that whole system. And then you had to, in modern times, so let's say you're in the 1600s, for example, and that's already like over, but it's almost 1900 years since Confucius' time. You had to try to implement, based on everything that you know from the Confucius rights, into how society should currently function. So you had to, obviously there was some corruption involved, but you had to just justify why you would do certain things. And as a result, a lot of people that were very competent and like creating policies and creating systems got into power. And that is how China has, like, they've had their own problems, obviously, but China has always been way ahead of the rest of the world until the West just saw gunpowder and went, oh, damn, we're going to do good things with these things. Because until then, China was scientifically ahead of everyone else. And
oh yeah, no, they had a lot of rich history and culture.
Yeah. And in the West, what we see is we have these people that have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, and they're just career politicians. Whereas what I would argue is that every 5 years, if you want to be a politician, you should be given this exam, and you should argue what you would do with all these policies based on a certain ideology, so that you actually can we can all see what your opinions are on certain things and how you would actually solve these problems. And then what you're saying, Mike, is actually quite intriguing, is that you hold an accountability system based on that. So in the first place, they would already have to show competency before even entering council, right? That was already step one. But then the second step would also be that after the competency has been proven, that's when we can actually see that you're actually arguing that you're going to do these type of things and how you're going to do it, because you've already described how you're going to do all of those things. And if you run into roadblocks, we would already know like where those roadblocks are. So when you get what you call it, when they do an investigation on you, they can see all of your exam answers, they can see all of your ideas and your ideology and what you were trying to do, what you were trying to achieve. And then they can see what you were running for in order to enter council and be like, these things don't match. And then you can have actual justification to put this person in prison, right? In the first place, you should never enter council, but yeah.
Yeah, there's another thing I would do as well. Maybe put term limits in, and like maybe put like the problem is it's not just the politicians as well. It's like the civil servants, because a lot of them have a lot of power as well. Because I remember when Priti Patel in the Conservatives wanted to, it was like a Zimbabwe plan or something like that, I think it was, where it was like a half-hearted attempt to deal with the immigration problem. This is about 6 or 7 years ago now, I think.
Germany actually went through with that idea, by the way.
Yeah, but the thing is, the civil service actively rebelled against us, so she was stopped by unelected people in the government. So we've got to do something about that. I don't know how we could deal with that, but we've also got to make sure that civil servants and the unelected people that a lot of the population often overlook can also be held accountable to this.
They also need to do this exam. Like everyone, civil servants, council members, everyone has to do this exam. And I will do it the same way, like in the medical world, when I studied physiotherapy. One of the things that I was taught in my second year is that it works with a point system, because you are working in the medical field, you're working with actual human beings. So that means after graduation, after you get your diploma, you are expected to not only work in the field, but also to retain knowledge and learn new things. This has also led to some problems where some seminars are complete bollocks and you're just going there in order to get points, which is another issue, obviously. But at the very least, there's a point system to justify your position, to justify that you're working in the medical field. If you're working in a civil servant position, it should be even more extreme, because not only are you working with people, you're working with the entire nation. Like the damage you can do is way less significant than a physiotherapist or a doctor, right? Like doctors, they could potentially make a mistake during surgery. This is a casualty rate of maybe 1 or 2 people.
They can cripple or kill you if you mess up.
But the civil servants can destroy the entire civilization.
Let me get something right here as well, just as an example. So Elon Musk invested money into the UK Reform Party. Would you then say that was unacceptable and put a stop to that because he has in no way got any
don't really matter. Like as long as the people that are physically there are tested, are examined, like making sure that these people, we understand their position, we understand their ideology, we understand what they're trying to do, what they're trying to achieve. Right now, we have no idea.
Because I don't like the idea of big money in politics. It's like, okay, Elon might be putting money towards something I somewhat agree with, as opposed to like the likes of Labour. If you put money towards Labour, I'd be even more opposed to it than I am now. But what Dominic's saying there is, this would be a good way to completely neutralize all of the big money, because people would have a very transparent view, not opaque, sorry, a very transparent view of what's going on in the government, as opposed to all this backroom dealing with all of this money. So they wouldn't be able to get away with it, which would be the main thing.
They could still get funding, which is kind of like, okay, like that means, for example, right, if I were to send money towards, like, let's say, what's a good party in my country, like Ja21, for example. It's one of the political parties that I somewhat agree with on like a bunch of things, right? In order to become a member of that party or just supporting them, I would send them money. It's just that the amount of money that they would receive is much larger for someone like Elon Musk, right? But if I were to actually know, like behind closed door, what their actual ideology is, what their actually points are, what they're actually trying to do, and the exam would be about the current state of our society. So let's say every single election cycle, we would have experts looking at the current state of our country and create questions based on issues. So let's say 10 years ago, most likely one of the questions that would come in will be the transgender, etc. problems. And well, this is for the English world, but in the Netherlands, we shut that down. There was a very clear and straightforward answer for people complaining about LGBT. What we said was there is anti-discrimination laws. Every single marginalized group is in there. We're not going to make a specific new law just to entitle you to feel good about yourself. You already have a law against you, and you just shut the fuck up. Like, we're not going to put more laws in place just so that you can feel special about yourself. You're not special.
Yeah, we've already got like civil rights laws that didn't need to be added to. So you're absolutely right there. And if the way it's like, I can't remember who said it, but basically, if you make a law that's not applied equally, you actually create a privilege.
Yeah, that's what the whole point was in our political debate during this time. I think this was like in 2019. It was very straightforward what we said. We have an anti-discrimination law, and that's all you need. Why are you trying to get more? Like, where is your logic? Like, we have gay marriage in this country. You can be openly gay. You have this extremely degenerative like Pride festival in Amsterdam, where there's people wearing BDSM clothes and doing blowjobs in alleyways, which I completely disagree with because it's completely degenerative. But we're still letting you get away with that. But
yeah, that's got nothing to do with pride. Because that's the thing. Pride has been
you're acting like a sex cult.
Corrupted. Yeah, pride's been corrupted now, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Because basically, if you see, and the thing is, like, you see people putting all those flags up all over England. So it's like you can put, it's like a foreign invader. You put all of these things up, but you can't have your own country's flag because apparently it threatens these people. It's like, well, so. You know,
why? Thing, right? Like,
well,
they don't believe that they're part of society, despite the fact that our laws already protect them. They need new laws just to specifically protect them, despite the fact they're already protected by anti-discrimination laws. It's like you're doing a whole kind of like hamster wheel of nonsense based on your own private feelings at the moment at that time. And there was
I didn't even think of it that way.
There's also like a situation in Australia. Let's get the facts on this right. Like, there was a case of someone threatening suicide if they didn't bend the law towards that person's will. Which is like, so you're basically doing what terrorists are doing. Like, for example, right? Like, if someone is doing a suicide bomb in like London, that's what you're doing because it's a suicide bomb. You're doing suicide, and you're threatening your own ideology for the rest of the people. But instead of a bomb, you're creating a situation that is going to have lasting effects of the rest of the country in the foreseeable future, right? Due to the fact you're changing laws.
It's emotional manipulation.
Yeah,
it's what an abusive partner would do in a relationship. They would use the exact same, like, oh, if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to self-harm. Yeah, so it's like, that's like, well, do it then, you know, because you know you're clearly a piece of shit. So yeah, it's where it's these people doing the exact same thing. It's like it's why they cry, being like, you know, oh, you know, there's a trans genocide going on, or you know, some other such nonsense, and it's like, yeah, you're just exploiting people's goodwill there. You're trying to emotionally abuse them for your own gain.
Yeah, and that is like what we're discussing over and over. Like, even in this episode, right, we're discussing so many things, but all of them are symptoms of a larger disease, and that is kind of like my main problem with society. Like, I'm kind of like looking at this from a civilizational theory standpoint, right? Like, I look at my country, I'm like, the culture itself has been weakened. Like, we've lost our spine. And in 2006, we had Jan-Peter Balkenende, which was at the time the prime minister of my country, from the party CDA, who made a statement saying we should go back to a VOC mentality. The VOC is the Dutch East Indies. That mentality of when the Dutch were an empire. And everyone in that room, he was a prime minister, right? So he was voted prime minister. Everyone in that room was like scoffing, like, what are you saying? Like, they were scoffing at him, like, what are you doing? Why are you saying this? And laughing. And now, in the past year, I've been getting a lot of these like videos and clips suddenly being brought into my algorithm because, well, obviously I'm watching a lot of political things, and this is what Dutch people are watching now. They're looking at what was being said 20 years ago, and they're like, what is wrong with that generation? Because at the time, the prime minister said what these people are thinking now. They're like, we need to go back to thinking about our country, the good for our country, the best for our country, and this type of mentality. But the problem is that there's also extremism attached to this entire movement, and nobody is talking about these things. Instead, what we have is like with these protests, right, some weeks ago, and it's just fancy words. Not trying to antagonize anyone, not trying to point fingers at anyone, just saying violence is bad, blah blah blah. Basic political party talk, right? And now elections are coming up, and they're doing the same thing. But I'm like, okay, so I'm seeing extreme on the right, extreme on the left. Because of the extreme on the left, what they've been doing for the past few years is vandalizing universities, vandalizing places, a lot of international students as well. So these are not even people from my country, destroying public property, destroying schools, destroying classrooms, just because they are having a hissy fit over what's going on in Palestine. And I'm like, bro, I live in the Netherlands. What do you want from me? Like, I genuinely don't care what's going on in Palestine. I understand there's a genocide going on, but it's just not my problem. My country's going to shit. That's my problem. My only focus is on my country.
Not my sand, not my problem.
Exactly.
There's right, because there's someone I know in a Discord, like some games I play with them, and there's someone I know in a Discord server. He absolutely freaked out when Donald Trump got a second term, right? Saying, "Oh, the America's going to go to shit. Like, yeah, people are going to die," and it's like. So wait, so like, maybe I was like, well, where do you live? What's going to happen? It's like, oh, I'm in the Netherlands. It's like,
what?
It's got nothing to fucking do with you. Then it's like, why are you? I mean, because he was so vehemently fit. It's like, again, it's TDS, but it's like, yeah, it's got nothing. It's going to have absolutely zero effect on you.
Some effect. Like the Netherlands is kind of like a vassal state from the United States. But this is
but I mean, it's not directly. It's not like Donald Trump's going to go there and personally kill him or everyone he knows.
Like this is some of the things that I've seen from the extreme left as well. Like this was before the GL and PvdA merged. So we have the Green Party and like the Labour Party, right? And they merged together. And from the Green Party during the Black Lives Matter movement, he was actively advocating for, oh, we should do these things, blah blah blah. I'm like, bro, there's like 0.0001% black people in this country. What are you talking about? And then on top of that, they are really discriminated against. Like the discrimination is going on in my country is against Moroccans. Like, but they're so obsessed with their phone and the news that they receive on their phone. These people genuinely believe they live in America. That's how I look at him. I'm like, this dude thinks he lives in America. Like, I don't know where you live, but this is not America, mate.
There's a funny one. Did you hear about people trying to do a black national anthem?
Oh yeah, I've heard about that too. Yeah,
it's like you do realize there's no such thing as a black nation, right?
Yeah, why are you being color into this?
Yeah, it's like but it's like the absurdity of it. It's like they're so obsessed. Like they hyper focus on this one facet of their identity, think that's their whole identity, and then use that to beat people over the head with and try and manipulate.
It's just activism,
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask. Is it maybe just for the bigger picture? Is it just not another part of be emotionally manipulating?
Yeah, no, it's
everybody.
It's used to do it because it's the whole like look at the concept of microaggressions, for example. That is designed so you can take the slightest interaction with someone, like someone just casually glances in your direction, and you could turn that into something to beat them over the head with.
That's actually a thing that's happening in my country. Like in 2024, last year, summer, they passed a law that would get you fined or put you in prison if you do like catcalling or stuff like that to a woman. Because we've completely removed the idea.
That's happened over here as well. Yeah.
Because we've completely removed the idea of like protecting your sister, or protecting your mother, protecting your woman. That idea is completely removed. Like now it's the state takes care of that. And that brings you back to the French Revolution, right? The whole idea of perpetual revolution, and that the revolution is never over, and is quite literally how the modern left is today. It's a permanent revolution, so you need permanent activism. That means you need to permanently switch between things, and that kind of brings me to Greenpeace. I'm assuming you both know what Greenpeace is, right?
Yeah.
So Greenpeace, throughout the past 5 decades, have done, because they're operating for my country, obviously, but they've done like a lot of things to help, quote unquote, the planet, right? And they're doing a lot of activism things, and they keep switching things around. And there was this one time they came in front of my door asking for money, and I'm like, okay, so tell me about this, because this was when I was 20 years old, right? It's like 10 years ago. And I was like, okay, it sounds interesting. They were trying to fight for the polar bears, right? It's like, okay, that's an interesting thing. Like, what do you want to do with them? Oh, we don't know. We just want to make sure the money goes there. I'm like, okay, so you have no idea what you're doing, but you just want to do something for someone. Okay, interesting. And then I watched that entire movement for the next 6 months. I never gave it money. And then it just went away, and then the next big thing came up. And then it was about, the coral reef.
Well,
And it's like
well,
they're
look at
constantly basically just creating a new activism in order to get money, but they're never actually solving anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at the climate crisis. That has consistently changed its goal every 10 years or so. I remember the first time I noticed it was when I was back when I was a kid in the 90s. The big thing was acid rain. Then it was then it was climate change, and now it's like the climate crisis. Now it's like global warming, that kind of thing. So they're always trying to move the goalposts to get something new going on. Because I remember, like someone told me back in the 60s, climate scientists were saying it was actually we were heading towards another ice age, and we needed to deal with that. Well, I'd say. So I'd say, well, if we've gone from going to an ice age to going to overheating the planet in less than 100 years, we've
Speed up the
definitely
process.
succeeded. Yeah.
Like, one of the key things for this is the AMOC. I don't know if you know what that is.
No.
The AMOC, I mean, to put it as simple as possible, it stands for the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation. So there is what you call it, like a sea pathway from like the Atlantic.
That's where they get the forecast from and stuff like that. How they predict
No,
forecasts. Is that
no.
right? No.
It's completely different. It's the seaway. Let me show you an image actually, because I think that's better, and I'll try to explain it as we go. I'll post it in this channel. So it's a sea pathway that goes from like the edge of Ireland and Scotland to Greenland, all the way to the Caribbean, to like Africa, to Madagascar, all the way to Australia, into the Pacific. And it's basically a connecting airway. We have a windway as well, by the way. There's this one for the wind as well that also goes over the planet that we know of. They do this with meteor.
You know what that looks like? It's like the map from Indiana Jones. You know, it says we're flying from here to here to here.
Okay. I mean, it's kind of right. Like you have the same with the airway. So basically, what this is that this is the airway that it does kind of involve the weather, Dave. So you're not wrong on that one. But this is currently slowing down due to global warming. And what that means is
Right.
that the weather is going to get more extreme. You might get more extreme weather shifts. And we're seeing that in the past 2 decades with the hurricanes becoming more aggressive, right? And getting more hurricanes. Like that's something we're already observing. And that has to do with this concept where the slower this gets, and that's kind of also where you go into another ice age. Like you will get more extreme winters. So that means our winters will become a whole lot colder again, which I don't really mind because I actually like minus 15 Celsius degrees. If it gets colder than that,
What are you? What are you, an Eskimo?
what do you want from me?
It's like-
I like that weather. It's nice. I like it. It makes me sleep really good.
I like a nice temperate 15 degrees. Thank you very much.
No. 15 is
Yeah, I'm the
alright, but like
same.
in my country, right, like due to our speed skating nature as well, we have something called the Elfstedentocht. And in order to have this, it's like on the canals and like the rivers, you do ice skating between 11 cities in the north. But the weather needs to be a certain like degree in order to even remotely think about organizing this event. But back in the past, we used to do this quite often. But now it's already been like 30 years since the last one because it doesn't get cold enough anymore. If anything, our winter now is just an extension of autumn. It's just very rainy and wet instead of it being cold. But like for me personally, I like cold
I
weather.
would say it's the same here. Like it hardly ever snows here or anything anymore. Like it's rare.
Yeah,
that
so
we see
you have
snow.
people betting on a white Christmas. That's how
Yeah,
it's
that's
now,
true.
isn't it?
But this basically, if this slows down even more, that's when like you might get more extreme weather patterns, and like on top of that, if you think about like the Ice Age was only 6 degrees colder than what it is today. So like these degree changes do actually matter when it comes to like maybe speeding up the next ice age to come back to Europe. But how that exactly is going to look, we don't really know. But the AMOC is like one of the components where we just know that this is very important for us to, especially as Europeans, to think about, okay, what's actually going to happen? Because if we get more extreme winters, that means we need to think about salt more, right? Because we need to salt the roads, and the road maintenance needs to be a bit more thought about. But generally speaking, in my country at least, back when I was still young, like a young lad, you had like
Wee boy.
very a lot of snow, right? And
Wee
even in
bunny boy.
those temperatures and weather circumstances, I still went cycling to school. I still went cycling to my friends. So like it doesn't really change too much, at least in my country, except that we might have to upgrade our dams even further, which I'm going to be real, we probably will anyway, because we're already paying like 700 million to upgrade our biggest dam. So Dutch doing Dutch things.
You know, for us here, we're not prepared for any kind of storm. I mean, every time there's some kind of storm, and I can remember that back in 2011, everything just came to a halt because there was this massive snowstorm and nobody could get anywhere. So the whole infrastructure quickly became unviable because of a snowstorm. So we need to invest more. I think if we're going to prepare, from what you're saying, if we're going to prepare for this AMOC and Ice Age, then we need to start investing more into infrastructure to make sure we're able to deal with it. For
Well,
for us here in
that's one
Britain,
thing I
anyway.
was thinking with with the whole global warming thing. It's like instead of because we're not going to be able to stop it despite our best efforts. So instead of trying to fight global warming, why don't we try to prepare for it?
Prepare.
Yeah, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah,
Like, even if the entire European Union and the United Kingdom went to a net zero CO2 output, the United States and China are still responsible for 60%. Like, it doesn't do anything. It's a dent in
So
what's
right,
actually happening.
like India and Pakistan as well are massive contributors towards it.
Yeah, but those two countries alone are already 60%. Just the United States and China. And that says you enough. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, over the decades, people are going to choose themselves over, like, the future. And that
Well,
is one of those things
plus you
about.
can't. Well, plus it's a natural phenomenon anyway, so we're not really going to be able to do much to stop it unless we somehow completely control the weather.
I mean, it's
And
not
I don't think that's.
entirely
I don't.
natural. Like,
Yeah, I
we
don't.
are speeding things up, right? That's what we are responsible
Slight,
for.
slightly, like very, very,
No, 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 not
one
slightly.
percent being generous. No, I'd say
No,
slightly.
no. Like, if you look at the actual numbers and like the actual science behind it, like the real proven science, we're speeding things up by hundreds, if not thousands, of years. It's
Oh, that's pocket change
yeah,
in the
sure.
planet's history.
But like I said, right,
I
the previous ice age was only 6 degrees.
yeah.
So that is already like how heavily things can shift on our planet by just 1 degree. And our responsibility isn't to try and stop the increase, it's to prepare for the increase.
Prepare for it.
That's
Yeah,
the
so
only thing you
that's
can
yeah.
do.
Yeah,
And that
so
brings you back
exactly what
to
I said.
the exam halls. Like the exam halls, like when you are creating these exams and you're putting politicians in charge, you need to have answers on these questions, like what their actual opinions are and what their backing is and what they've read about these things to ensure that they are not only factually correct,
And it's on a database that can be
yeah,
looked up so people can use that to
and it's
look.
also to see like how they actually plan to intervene. Like, are they only going to talk about we're going to try to reduce it? That means these people need to be thrown in jail or just completely forbidden from entering
There,
any political
there
political
is
party.
there is one problem with that though, and again, it's the bringing the horse to water problem, because for example, the going back to the trust again, they currently have their annual general meeting going up, and they've got elections for various positions going, like council positions, like new councillor positions there, and there's like a big leaflet of all of these people who are given their stated positions of what they want to do within the trust, how they want to move the trust forward, and there's like 150 200 people in there, and I've heard complaints from on message boards and like of people saying there's far too many people. How am I supposed to look over all of this? So there's also the just inherent laziness of some people who will refuse to even look at this, even if the information's available.
This is why I kind of like AI. It helps a lot. Even the lazy people can then be like, okay, so just summarize all the positions or something like that, or just even doing a test, for example. But on the other side, like in the Netherlands, we have something called the waterschapsverkiezingen. I'm assuming you have no idea what that is. But
Nope.
that is the
Like-
elections. So this is an electoral cycle. Like it functions as a democracy for people that are in charge over certain regions in the country, specifically for the dams. So that means the entire system of election is based on electing people in charge of us not drowning. And this one actually does just fine because we haven't drowned yet, and all of our systems when it comes to how we handle like emergency responses to flooding and all of that are currently still extremely good. So this is like a political position that doesn't really do anything politically except for maybe prove that you are capable of having a good argument when it comes to our dams and stuff like that. But this is an actual election democratically voted into people that are responsible for us not drowning. And then suddenly you're actually putting people in charge that want to make sure that we don't drown. So there does need to be some level of like accountability. And like if the dams fell, for example, or like if the structures fell, the flooding goes wrong, these people are personally held accountable because they're responsible for how all of these systems are operating. And that is like an example of why democracy came into be for the first place, right? Because like the Germanic people, like Switzerland, like these kind of nations were kind of like pushing forward the idea of democracy. And it kind of works in that sense when it actually matters for the people. And that brings you to Machiavelli, right? And Machiavelli made the argument that in a republic, in a democracy, the people need to be able to willing to fight for its nation, like bring in the virtue of the people, the virtue of like the nation. And if that is missing, if that is lacking, that's when you get issues. That's when you get problems. Like the current corruption of society is careerism, obviously, but it's like so much more than that. Like the system itself is flawed. You don't have an accountability system. You have a democracy that is more theater than it is actual functioning, which brings you to Plato's problems, right? Like he suggested the philosopher king, and after like Plato's passing and the ancient Greeks took the democratic system with the philosopher kings, it became the exact same thing as the Byzantine Empire. They were just permanently debating, completely ignoring that the Spartans were coming, right? And that is happening in your country, it's happening in my country, where we are seeing like this flux of immigrants, this flux of refugees, and the barbarians who burned Rome back in the day are currently the ones drifting our policy papers. Because that's how I see the current politicians. They're the barbarians just burning our cities down. Because if you look at London, if you look at Frankfurt, if you look at Malmo in Sweden, if you look at Rotterdam, crime rates, rape rates, drug rates, heavily drug addiction, heavy rape addiction. Like it's like this whole fantasy from consuming too much porn as well, right? They're just creating an entire city to just overindulge yourself into these type of behaviors. I don't know how you two view this.
I mean, there is a will to get people out there, like you said, with the politicians, like the career politicians.
Yeah,
At least in this country, but the whole raising the flag, the raise the colours movement, is a direct response to this, and it just shows people are sick of it, and they are actively standing up against the
yeah, but this too is
politicians.
activism, right? Like in the past 20 years, we've seen multiple activism movements, and all of these movements never really chose a leader, never really chose a structure, never really chose what needs to be done. They've just set all the things. They wrote it on paper, stuff like that, and eventually they got funding, which is what's happening right now, right? Elon Musk invested. And then, due to this nature of the activism movement, it just collapsed in on itself because it never actually had any substantial power behind it. And
This one's different. I've got some stuff to show you later because there's too much to go into right
all
now.
right.
But yeah, reform is not the way forward. I mean, it's a good stopgap to getting at least ousting Labour and the Conservatives out of power, and I think it'd be good. But I don't think Farage has people's best interests in mind. Like the Restore Britain.
Well, France was a banker
Yeah.
at the
Well,
end of the day, wasn't it?
the Restore Britain movement has been founded by people who were ousted from reform by Farage when he basically consolidated power in the movement, because he's got a habit of doing this. He finds a movement that's being popular, installs himself in power, and then just puts his own cronies into it. So yeah, so I think it's a start, but Reform aren't going to be the ones that save the day. It's going to be whatever comes out of Restore Britain. But I'll show you more stuff from that later.
Then just, is there anything else that we want to talk about in this episode? Otherwise, we can wrap things up. Dave?
No, I think everything that's needed to be said has been said. I mean, just to summarise, obviously, everything seems to be going downhill. Everything seems corrupt at the moment, with politicians wanting to line their pockets rather than having the best interests of their country at hand, which is just creating a bad situation for us all, in my opinion.
Then until next week.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys. Take care. Have a good one.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by my book, We Stand on the Shoulders of Titans, Amnesia.